I'm just going to keep talking. What I realized, though, is that when people would come in for a tour, I would always volunteer. Thank you. This is our first beer, Haas, right? When people would come in to take a tour, I would stop what I was doing to show them around because it's way more fun to hang out, drink beer, visit, than it is to work. So that's how I realized that I would be a sales guy. Some people, like chefs, stay in the back with the ingredients. Other people want to be more front of the house and interact with the visitors. When I started at the brewery, there was probably about a dozen employees. It was tiny. And so there were no formal tours. People would really have to seek us out, and they would be genuinely interested in beer. So it was great to kind of spend some time, like I'm doing with you guys tonight, with people who care about beer and want to learn about it. And it was very rewarding. That was my favorite part of the job. In my first year review, I said, I think I'd be a good sales guy. People come in, I tell them about the beer, they buy beer and take it with them. And I'm proud. And that's what I do still. So now we have a much nicer brewery. We've expanded a ton. We've got almost 50 employees. We've been around in the same location, 22nd and Arapahoe, downtown Denver, right up the street from our big baseball diamond since 1994. So we've been making great beers, winning a ton of awards. We've got 18 medals from the Great American Beer Fest. We've got 5 World Beer Cup medals. Some of the medal-winning beers are here tonight. We'll taste them. So that's a good segue into Haas. Does everybody else have the beer I have now? Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Haas. This is a pretty cool beer. This beer started out as a seasonal for us. In fact, this was our first commercial lager that we did. When the brewery first started, it was really inspired by, the owner, Brian Dunn, was inspired by English beers. So we had, we'll taste an English pale ale coming up. But we had a lot of pretty mild flavored beers, easy by today's standards, kind of easy drinking. But not a lot of lagers. It just takes a lot of time to make, and a lot of it's really a focus on temperature and technique, and it's tricky. And for breweries who are getting started, that fast turnover time on ales is a better moneymaker, you know? So as the brewery grew, we decided to do a seasonal program. Haas came out in the fall. It was a seasonal beer. We were able to take Haas so the owner of the brewery bought a new house and had a housewarming party, and we brought a case of every beer that we made there. And Haas was the first one that we ran out of because this beer has this quality that I call moreish. It invites you to drink more. It's a dry finish. So it's based on an Oktoberfest. It's 100% imported malt. This is one of our most expensive beers for us to make, but it's line price with all of our other beers. It's a really fun beer to start off with because it's approachable. It's malt driven. It's on the sweet side, but it finishes dry. I get a real nice cherry note. And then that rye has got this dry finish, and that's where that moreish comes in. We use Vienna malt, Munich malt, and then rye. So that's where it's different from a normal Oktoberfest, which is also malt driven and can be sweet. The rye really dries it up and gives it a little sort of spiced character, which I really enjoy. As a sales guy, it's great to have a beer that is a twist on a familiar style. So you can say, do you like Oktoberfests to the good people of Cicero's? And they say, oh yeah, of course we do. Well, I've got a beer that's like an Oktoberfest that's made all year round. And what we've done is update the style by adding rye to it, so it's a little bit different. And then if somebody says, I'm a big fan of rye lagers, they're pretty much talking about this beer. There's just not a ton of them out there. So this is a fun one to show off. We're really proud of it. After we released it for fall seasonal, it won a medal in the rye beer category at the Great American Beer Fest. And that year, we decided immediately to make it a year-round beer for the following year. So Great American Beer Fest is usually late September, October. By, I think, March or April, we had released it as a full year-round beer, and we were able to enter it in the World Beer Cup. It won a medal there in the rye beer category, which is great. So new beer comes out, wins 2 medals right away. We knew we were onto something. So it's always, we're always proud when the new beers are winning awards. That makes us feel like we're going in the right direction. So any thoughts, comments? Have you all smelled the beer? Do you get that kind of rich, think of sort of caramelized, like this is great with like a roast turkey, Thanksgiving kind of turkey. But I get a little roasty, cherry, and then that dry finish. Does everybody else? Does that match what you guys taste? Toffee. Yeah. Yep. Sounds right.
Is anyone else getting the cherry?
Yeah.
Once he said it,
Yeah, it's underneath, and what's neat about it, so lager yeasts are very clean, and so that flavor, normally a fruity flavor comes from the ale yeast, and kind of estery flavors, but this is actually coming from those cool European malts. Yeah. We use European hops as well. Hersbrucker, Perle. So pretty straightforward beer, Oktoberfest inspired, and really fun. And there's not a ton of sort of commercial lagers from microbreweries, so it stands out. I can usually bring that out for somebody who says, "Oh, I don't really like craft beer. I kind of like milder beers," and say, "Well, try this one. This isn't scary. You know, it's clean."
it's kind of nice to have a beer that's similar to a Marzen.
Yeah,
We have to have one at different times of the year.
it's great in the fall by a fire, you know, with some barbecuing or camping before the end of the summer. But it's great throughout the year. So yeah, it does really well for us. Thanks. Does everybody else have the next beer? So this is Denver Pale Ale. This is a pretty awesome beer. This is a gold medal winner at the Great American Beer Fest and the World Beer Cup. This is what I was referring to when I said we were inspired originally by some English ales. It's my one word for this beer is balanced. You can smell some hoppiness in the nose. What do you guys taste? Anybody have something jump out at them? I'll tell you, there's kind of a secret ingredient. At least it was a secret to me until I worked at the brewery. We use a little bit of chocolate malt in this beer, and that's not normal. It's kind of gives it a little edge, a little roast underneath. It's a small amount, but it's enough to give it a kind of depth. So one of the great things about GreatDivide, it wouldn't be a brewery without the city of Denver. The city of Denver was one of our investors, basically. We got a low-interest loan from the city of Denver. Otherwise, there would be no brewery. We went into a neighborhood that needed jobs and some stability, and we've really become a poster company for that program because it started off with just Brian Dunn. They had one volunteer, a guy up the street would come in and help. But it was basically, he was the brewer, the salesman, the plumber, you know, everything. So he did it all, and now, as I mentioned before, there's about 50 employees, and it's a big part of downtown Denver. Not only did we go into kind of this sort of scary warehouse district and set up shop, but now there's fine dining restaurants all over. Our little ballpark neighborhood has become kind of the hot spot to be. So it's great. It's not just because of us, but it's because of the city that's willing to work with small businesses, and it's great for the community. So for that reason, we wanted to name a beer after Denver. And it's an English pale, but it's done with an American style. So we use some like Centennial hops, Sterling and Golding hops. So some European, some American. Maybe it's not perfectly balanced. I think the hops win a little bit, but you can definitely taste that maltiness. And this beer, I would say, is a good all-the-time beer. This is the kind of beer, if somebody comes to my house and says, oh, just give me whatever, I'll just have a beer. I don't care. I'll say, okay, we'll start here, and then you can tell me if you want to go maltier like Haas, hoppier like Fresh Hop, maybe. And it's a good central place to start from. So far, so good?
What's the ABV?
5.5 on this one. Not super strong. Haas is 6.2. Yeah. So Haas is a little higher. We'll dip back up to 6 here with Fresh Hop 2.
How about the IBUs?
IBUs for Haas is 28 and 40 for DPA and 55 for Fresh Hop. Yeah. Denver Pale Ale was the flagship beer for the brewery for a long time. You know, when the brewery first started, they were just doing kegs out of the tap room and growler fills, and that was it. And the tagline for the brewery was just say DPA. It was fresh beer to go, you know. And we have a big kind of iconic building, a cash register building, and that was in Denver, and that was the logo. And really, whenever I talk to people who've been interested in craft beer for a long time, they always say, oh, DPA, that's got to be your best seller. Our IPA is now our best seller. It's kind of surpassed DPA, but in Denver especially, it's one of our best known beers, you know. Most iconic. We've got some other iconic beers we'll taste tonight too. So DPA is a good food beer, you know. So is Haas actually, but because it's so central, you can kind of play off the hops or play off the malt. Go both ways. Thanks. All right. So this beer's pretty exciting. This one just landed here. I was hoping we'd be able to pour it. This is Fresh Hop. Oh, you don't have it yet? Okay, it's coming. Yep, sorry. I got mine early. Yeah. Sorry. Put your nose up to the glass on this one and tell me what you guys smell if you just call out anything. Yeah, it's very citrusy. Yes?
It smells like a pair of shoes that need to get washed.
Uh-oh, is that it? In a good way?
Hey, well,
Washing shoes.
I always say this about Hopsland, and everybody, goes crazy. But that beer smells like a cat under the Christmas tree.
So Fresh Hop's a pretty awesome beer. So it's a wet hopped American Pale Ale. So it's going to be a lot hoppier than DPA. We use wet hops from Yakima, Washington. They are basically delivered directly from the farm to the brewery. It takes us about 3 days to make the beer. When the hops arrive, they're about a day off the vine. That's how long it takes to get to Denver. And the recipe changes each year depending on kind of the hop harvest. This year it was Simcoe and Centennial wet hops. And it's a semi-full, it's changed. It used to come in these black, trash bags, and it looked like a marijuana farm. It was like the cooler was just full of these overflowing trash bags with these gorgeous catkins, yeah. It is cool. It's fun. It's a really exciting beer. When I first started at the brewery, Hibernation, our winter seasonal, and Fresh Hop were the only two seasonal beers that we made, and they would come out at the same time of the year each year, October. So it would kind of, everybody would get very excited about Fresh Hop, and it's so labor intensive to brew with those whole cone wet hops. Normally the hops are cured, they're dried, they get pulverized and pelletized, and then you can use them throughout the year. But this is before they get cured, so I get a real grassy kind of flavor, maybe like lawn mowing shoes. Yeah. But citrusy is something I would use a lot. A little orangey, peachy. And it's a really fun beer because it's of the moment. This is the one time a year that we can make this beer. We race it to Denver to brew with it, and then we race it to you guys to drink it. I know we've got kind of an update to the label that's like, drink it fast, drink it now. Don't keep it, don't store it, don't save it. Today is the best it's going to taste. The younger the better. And that's really important. People don't always know which beers to age. This is not one to age. This is one to enjoy now. So, let's see stats on that. It's about 6%, and it's probably one of our highest sought after beers because it is so kind of quick to go. 55. Yeah. I always say that, it reminds me of like home baked bread as opposed to maybe like Sunbeam or something, or like kettle chips versus Lay's potato chips, where there's just a hardiness there that it's hard to kind of describe without using other examples like that. It's,
I think fresh is a great way to describe it. I get a lot of, kind of reminds me of, well, it's going to sound really strange, but I'm not mowing the lawn and sweating all over myself. Yeah. That's my mouth. It's like grass and earth, and, I think it's a great way to
yeah.
describe that.
Yep.
If you've ever cut hay,
Yeah.
sort of what your mouth tastes like.
Sure.
Hay, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun beer. It's great. And like I said, it's one of our longest running seasonals. So every time it is October, think about us and look for this beer before it's gone.
Or the fourth one, so.
Okay. Yeah, so let me tell you about some cool stuff at GreatDivide. I'm not used to being on the mic here. We're building a new brewery. So we've been around in that same location, and it's overflowing. We did about 40,000 barrels last year. We can do up to 65,000 barrels. We won't quite hit that this year, but while we're working towards that capacity, we're building a new brewery directly about 12 blocks up the street from our existing brewery. So we'll have a brand new brewery we're excited to show off. It's kind of coming in 3 phases. The first phase is just going to be a warehouse. Right now we rent warehouse space because that's something easily we can sort of have off-site. What used to be the parking lot for the brewery is now what we call the tank farm. So no more parking lot. Now it's 2,300 barrel tanks. So it's rows of tanks like a farm. And so that's where a lot of these beers came out of. We're excited to get a new canning line. Well, we don't can anything right now. So we're going to start canning at the new brewery. Probably mid next year, we'll be releasing those cans. And we'll do some of our best sellers, Titan, Lasso, Colette is a farmhouse ale. Those are all going to be in cans by June or so. So that's pretty exciting. Yes? Good question. The question was, will we keep the original brewery and run both? Yes, we will. The new brewery will be focusing on high volume beers, and we'll be doing all the canning and kegging over there. The existing brewery at 22nd and Arapahoe will just do 750s. We do barrel aged beers in 750 milliliter bottles, and we'll do 22 ounce beers. A lot of these seasonal beers like Fresh Hop just are in the 22s, so that will all get brewed and packaged at the existing brewery. So there'll be a division of labor, but we'll have both locations. The new location will get 15 of those 20 300 barrel tanks, so that'll clear up a lot of room to have a big beer garden in the what used to be the parking lot. So that'll be cool. That's pretty exciting. That's coming up, and we're all excited for it. It's about 5 acres. We'll be able to make a lot more beer. The backyard, I guess, of the new brewery, the city's building a park. So there's a river, then there'll be a park, and then there'll be the brewery. So it's going to be pretty awesome. We'll have a big park in our backyard, and they want us to have beer available for, they're going to do a lot of fun events down there. It's really exciting. It's, again, continuing our working with the city. Yeah, partnership. Yeah, there's a question in the back.
I've been to your brewery, but I don't remember. You didn't have any food, right?
That's correct. The question is, do we have food at the brewery? We have food trucks pull up because there's no pub. It's just... Yes, with the new location, there's going to be space for more food. What we think is the capacity at the new brewery would require like 3 or 4 food trucks if we wanted to continue with that model, and that's just not now a good idea. I think it's better to just do it in-house. So, another question? Yep. Yeah, so the question is, why do we put beer in 22-ounce bottles as opposed to 6-packs? Yeah, or kegs or something. Yeah, it's a format thing. You know, a lot of the beers that we put in 22-ounce bottles originally were kind of the big bombers. High alcohol beers. So like Hercules and Yeti. Before I worked at the brewery, they did what was called the Maverick series, and it was Maverick Imperial Stout, which became Yeti, that I think we've got coming right now, and Maverick IPA, which became Titan. Thanks. Yeah. So originally it was limited release, and those were the only 22-ounce bottles that we did. The idea there is you can kind of spread it around a little bit. It's basically 2 bottles of, 2 12-ounce bottles roughly would equal a bomber. So instead of selling one person a 6-pack, you could sell 3 people a bomber each and kind of spread it around. People shop differently. The beers like Yeti and Hercules are now available in the 4-packs. So that kind of keeps splits the difference there with now you have 4 unique opportunities to drink the beer.
It's got to all come down to money though, right?
No. I mean, I don't think so. Yeah. So we definitely factor, we pay attention to the cost of beer and stuff like that. But it's more driven, like we came out with the 4-packs and didn't do away with the 22s, even though one might be more profitable than the other. We want options for people. Yeah. I know that when we first released the 12-ounce bottles of Hercules, I went from drinking 1 22-ounce to 2 12-ounce, which are 24 ounces. So, but it's okay. I also think it's okay to just say, hey, I want to split a 12-ounce beer, maybe, I don't always want to split even a 22-ounce of a 10% beer. Sometimes I'm like, I just want to sip. So I'll have a couple sips. You can have a couple sips, and then we're not wasting the other half of a bomber. Does that make sense?
Nice to have those options.
Yeah, it is. Cool. Okay. Yeti Imperial Stout. This is a pretty awesome beer. I mentioned before that it started out as Maverick. There's a big wave that is like this big surfing thing. It's called the Maverick, I think. And I can't remember the name of the brewery, but they have the rights to the name Maverick, so we had to change it. We changed it to Yeti, which is way more exciting, I think, than Maverick Imperial Stout. So yeah, it's a pretty fun name. It's a big, imposing beer. This marks that Maverick series kind of marked a departure from English-inspired beers to maybe more bigger, bolder, but still balanced flavors. And that's really what we try to achieve here. On the nose, get a little chocolatey, roasty coffee, licorice.
These guys have heard me say this before.
Yeah.
You guys remember what I mean when I say this is a sexy beer? Baby making beer. I don't have a baby. This is one of the baby beers.
Yeah.
This is the baby making beer.
Yep.
You need to have me tell you that story.
Okay. Yeah, I think sexy is right. It reminds me of dessert and decadence. One thing that I really like about this beer is that beneath that coffee, chocolatey, roasty flavor, there's a ton of hops, and they kind of peek through with a little citrus sort of flavor. The bitterness from the hops melds pretty well with that sort of dry roast bitterness from the malts. It's a 9.5% beer. It's 75 IBUs. It's one of our hoppier beers. It actually, I think it just got honorable mention, so like 4th place. There's a Alpha King challenge that they do during the Great American Beer Fest where they take super hoppy beers and run them through a bed of wet hops and taste the results and judge them. And it's usually IPAs, double IPAs, Imperial Reds, big hoppy beers that always win. This one time, and it's probably one of the only dark beers that...
75 is a big number.
It is, yeah. It's a lot, but it goes back to that kind of balance. It's got alcohol warmth at 9.5%. It's big roasty flavor. Yes. No, the question was, is that what Imperial Stout means? Does it mean it's hoppier? It doesn't, although there's usually more hops in there. Imperial, in this case, just means strong, basically. So, double IPA, Imperial IPA, those are stronger IPAs. Imperial Stout is a stronger stout in terms of alcohol strength. So, in order to get that alcohol strength, you use more malt to have more potential fermentables, and then in order to kind of make a flavorful, balanced beer, you'll use more hops, and so it ends up being not quite double, but a lot more of the ingredients. Yeah. Another question?
What hops do you guys use?
So we use Simcoe, we use Centennial, and then we dry hop this beer. We use a lot of Amarillo. We use pale malt, crystal malt, wheat, chocolate, black malt, roast malt. So you get a little kind of that burnt toast sort of finish from a lot of those dark malts. Yeah, it's a really nice beer. We